Thank you, Wesco.
Right.
Just open for us.
Dear Lord, thank you for this time that we can gather around and share knowledge. I pray your blessing over this Q&A meeting and introduction of a number of companies that we may be able to assist the attorneys and advocates within our country, and maybe answer questions that they don't know, and maybe we can learn from it as well. And just ask for your blessing, and we pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you, everybody. I'm Letty Stander. I'm the public relations person for Wesco Forensic Services, and I would like to say, and to each and every person, thank you for your time, and we hope that the information that the expert will share today will help you in the future. So the procedures of this meeting is going to be as follows. Each expert, that will be Wessie van der Westhuizen, Frans, Lucas, Peter Fryer, and Rian. If you can just state in very short who you are and from which company you are, and a little bit about your background. And if you're done, we will go back to Wessie, that will start with his presentation, then Peter Fryer from Risk Diversion, and then Rian van Schalkwyk from Chipred. Thank you so much, Wessie. If you can just open for us on the reason for the meeting.
Good morning to you all. Thank you for your time. My name is Wes van der Westhuizen. Most of the people know me as Wes, even though my name is Jannie van der Westhuizen. I am the CEO and founder of Wesco Forensic Services, and we are based in Pretoria, and we assist the bigger bunch of our clients are attorneys, corporate companies, mines, where we can assist them in additional investigations or discrepancy regarding casework that's already been presented in court. So this is who we are, and I will hand over to the next person. Thanks.
Lucas?
Good morning, all. I'm Lucas Visser. I'm a forensic ballistic expert. I'm also at Wesco. So, as I said, I deal with most of my cases is ballistic cases. So if you've got any questions on ballistic cases, I will gladly answer. Thank you.
Frans?
Yeah, good morning from my side as well. Thank you very much. Yes, as I said, I'm Frans van der Merwe. I'm also connected to Wesco. I'm the training director there. And yes, I was involved in many high-profile cases nationally and internationally. Thank you.
Thank you. Peter Fryer from Risk Diversion.
Morning. Risk Diversion is a specialist digital forensics firm. For more than 2.5 decades, we have been supplying technology to law enforcement agencies in and around Africa. Our market is sub-Saharan Africa specifically. Our primary mandate is to research new methodologies and technologies for law enforcement, and then sell and support those technologies to our clients. We do also offer private lab services. Our clients include, but aren't limited to, corporates, law firms, private forensic firms. And we have in-house more than 100 years of experience in the digital forensic environment. Thank you.
Thank you. Rian van Schalkwyk from Red Cyber. Thank you, Rian.
Good morning. Thank you. Rian van Schalkwyk, founder of Red Cyber. We specialize in open source intelligence using the latest technologies, which we will demonstrate at the end of this session. We further work on cryptocurrency investigations and financial crime compliance.
Thank you so much, Rian. Wessie, if we can start with you, and Susan, if you can open a presentation, if you can just then start with a presentation from Wesco Forensic Sites.
Can I go, Susan? All right.
Go to the next slide, please, Susan.
Okay, lady, can I collaborate on this? What's coming up on the slideshow?
Yes, 100%.
Just want to reiterate the fact that we as private companies, including Peter Fryer running his companies, and Rian van Schalkwyk, his companies, we are there to assist the private sector and attorneys with a number of queries. And as we all are well aware of the backlog of casework, forensic investigations within the South African Police Service, within the 4 different labs based in the 4 different provinces. We have to deal with a big backlog regarding all aspects of the forensic science fields within the labs. And one aspect is the increasing backlog of toxicology casework, DNA, fingerprints, ballistic related investigations, thousands and thousands of cases of backlog within the 4 different laboratories in South Africa, which causes a big problem for our court system. And some of these cases are being withdrawn and not prosecuted due to the fact that we are dealing with a big backlog in all forensic fields within the crime labs based in 4 different provinces in South Africa. And I don't think it's because of skill. I think it's a big issue with skilled workers that has to be appointed to pay attention to this backlog and being involved in the investigation process. But some of these things are just not viable because there is such a big backlog that it will take years and years and years to get everything back to scratch. Next slide, please. Within our company, Wesco Forensic Services, we have a panel of subcontractors, and we have assigned contracts with a variety of labs to assist us with specialized investigation like DNA. We all are aware of the big backlog within the DNA section in South Africa regarding rape and other crime-related investigations. It causes a huge problem, and some of this evidence being stored correctly or incorrectly gets obliterated because they are rotten evidence over a time period and cannot be presented in court to present a case. And that is a big problem within our country. Next slide, please. Within our own company, we deal with a variety of forensic fields. For instance, gunshot primer residue. I think there is a big misconception of GPR because the Americans categorize GPR as primer residue and gunshot residue, and there is a distinct difference between the 2 of them. Primer residue originates from the primer that consists of burning materials called lead, antimony, and barium. They have replaced the lead section to keep it a more greener zone in percussion caps when it comes to production of ammunition. So primer residue is where is collected either from the hands, the nose, or the forehead, or the cheekbones from the actual person who discharged a specific firearm. Gunshot residue is the burned particles or partly burned particles that protrudes from the muzzle and could be transferred to any secondary medium like clothing, material, curtains, glass, metal, and we make use of this gunshot residue to actually distinguish between the muzzle to target distance. So there's a distinct difference between gunshot residue and primer residue. Next slide, please. Within our own company, we make use of different chemicals to detect bodily fluids. These chemicals are obtained from a company that Peter runs, Risk Diversion or Forensic Tools, that provides us with the necessary chemicals to attend to crime scenes when necessary. For instance, we make use of Blue Star. It is a chemical that reacts to the iron and the plasma within the blood, and it makes like a bluish color when applied correctly, and the light should be a little bit dim, almost dark, but not too dark that you cannot distinguish between certain objects on a crime scene and where you were diverted to, where people would say there's blood transfer. And then when you look at the slideshow, you will see the bluish color that is created with the reagent being applied to the blood, or apparent blood, as they would say, or an area where the blood was cleaned, or crime scenes have been cleaned. So you can't actually visually detect blood, but then you make use of this reagent called Blue Star forensics. Next slide. We're also being involved with the identification of disputed branding marks, especially in stock theft, where they brand certain ox or animals and sheep. Within this forensic investigation, as we would call it, is we can distinguish which branding tool have been used to actually brand a number of oxen or sheep, for this matter. Each branding tool is very unique. You can't reproduce that branding tool. So we have the capabilities of distinguishing between the branding tool and the branding mark that's been relayed to the actual animal skin. And we can do the matching to distinguish whether these animals have been stolen or moved from one area to another, depending on the branding marks. Next slide, please. We also deal with the latent print identification or fingerprint identification within our company. Fingerprints is quite a vital aspect on any crime scene to distinguish who was present, who was not, who was wearing gloves, who was not wearing gloves. It's also a very scientific manner of identification, and they also make use of a number of chemicals and powders to distinguish between fingerprints. Technology has evolved in regards to fingerprints or latent prints with chemicals and powders, and I know Peter will collaborate more on that because he's very related to this type of investigation within his own company, and he provides the necessary powders and chemicals. He's also developed his own powders and chemicals to assist fingerprint experts. Next slide. We also deal with footwear and tire impression comparisons. That's also a vital aspect on any crime scene, which is overlooked sometimes. Most of the times, actually, when it comes to tire prints and shoe prints, it's called impression comparisons. And it's also not so much scientifically, but it's by ways of identification, where we make a comparison either between footwear or tire marks that's left behind on a crime scene. And this is a big problem within our country, where investigators go to a crime scene and they observe these type of evidence, but they either lack the expertise to lift these marks on the crime scene, or they don't have the sufficient tools to lift such markings and being submitted to the crime lab for later comparison when an individual is arrested, with maybe the specific shoe he was or she was wearing on this crime scene or the vehicle he was driving at. So this is quite a vital aspect within the forensic field as well. And worldwide, it's been accepted as a very conclusive piece of evidence when it comes to crime scenes. Next slide, please. Here we have to deal with tool mark examination and microscopic comparisons. There's not a big distinguished field between tool marks and firearm-related identification marks. They're all created and manufactured by tools, so these tools leave their own markings on the softer medium, like, for instance, barrels, working individual parts within handheld or shoulder-held firearms when they are involved in discharging ammunition. Tool marks is very unique in both aspects where tools were used to either pry open aluminium doorways or being used to get access to houses or any other factory, and they leave marks behind which we can use and lift with microscope to be compared with the actual tool later recovered either from the crime scene or maybe the suspect being arrested with this type of tool or tools within his possession. Then we can do the comparison between the actual tool and the marks left behind on the crime scene or on the human body by this individual tool or tools. The same is exactly within the firearm aspect of identification, where we can do identification or make identifications between fired cartridge cases and fired bullets. On the bearing surface of the bullet, we deal with land and grooves, and in those class characteristics, there's individual characteristics that we utilize for comparison either to a barrel or working parts within a certain aspect of a firearm, either firing pin, breech face, extractor, ejector, chamber marks, magazine marks, feeding marks, where we have to deal also with fired projectiles through the barrel that we can make positive to a specific barrel. I know that in South African courts, and I think the attorneys might collaborate on that, is that when they submit a firearm with a fired projectile, either recovered from a crime scene or a post-mortem, the obvious result will read as follows. The submitted bullet marked so and so and so was fired in the firearm submitted in 3.2 with serial number so and so. It is actually wrong to state that the fired bullet or projectile was fired from that firearm. There's no other aspect or identification that you can link with that firearm to the fired bullet recovered from the scene or the post-mortem. You can only say that the fired bullet or projectile was fired through the barrel being submitted, and that was actually a part of that specific firearm. If they submit fired cartridge cases, which you can link to the individual parts of it, the other parts of a firearm, like the breech face, firing pin, extractor, ejector, then you can say, the fired cartridge case and the bullet was either fired and fired from the specific firearm being submitted as evidence. But only if you have to deal with the bullet, you can only say it's being fired through that barrel. Next slide, please. Physical matching is not actually a scientific field. You don't need to have a rocket science degree to be involved in physical matching. We all are involved with physical matching from a young age, when your parents used to buy you Lego blocks and those ring castles. So you can do physical matching just by orientating the specific known or unknown subject. You can either say it's from that origin or it's not. It's either part of that broken piece of metal or plastic or not, by compiling a physical match. And there's a perfect example on this slideshow, and the registration number of a vehicle, either involved in a hit and run or a car accident, a vehicle accident, where you can take the pieces of the registration number and do a physical match. It's like building a puzzle, so you don't need to have a science degree to be involved in physical matching. Next slide, please. On this slide is that we deal with microscopic comparison of fired cartridge cases. This is what it looks like when you make a positive identification on a known and unknown fired cartridge case or cartridge cases. This is where we make use of individual characteristics to collaborate identification between known and unknown samples being collected from the crime scene, and test fires that we fire within controlled environment inside a lab. The image that you see on the slide here is what you see through the ocular lens of a comparison microscope, and then it comes with a dividing line on the microscope. On the left, you'll have the exhibit. On the right, you'll have the test or the known fired cartridge case, and we look at different aspects on the breech face to orientate us as experts in this field, either from ejector, firing pin, extractor, chamber marks, and some other marks left behind by the feeding process from the round from the magazine into the chamber. In this instance, we deal here with a Glock by the looks of it, and those Glock is very distinct. It's got a rectangular imprint, convex and concave areas, which we make use of in some areas of the bridge face as a positive identification. Those are we call drag marks. Because of a dropping bridge, it creates those markings on the firing pin or on the primer. Next slide, please. We've touched base on this with our previous slides, microscopic comparison of fired bullets. On the left, you'll see an exhibit. On the right, you'll have a test. This is what you see on the comparison microscope in color. Some of these microscopes, when you take photos through the camera system on the microscope, you can do it either in color or black and white or different shades of color filters to distinguish between the two of them. What I refer to on the bearing surface of a fired projectile or a bullet is called lands and grooves. And these impressions are left behind on the bearing surface of a bullet that travel through the barrel, and you can see it on the slide. It's referred to as land and grooves. Excuse me. And then we make use of these class characteristics to orientate ourselves, and then we make use of the individual characteristics within the class characteristics to make a positive or undetermined or negative identification. Next slide, please. We also deal with firearm identification, whether it's a manufactured firearm from a different country, make or model, caliber. And then we deal with homemade devices, which is quite a big aspect of, where criminals make use of homemade devices that they constructed themselves or built in the backyard to commit crimes. Some of these homemade devices are very lethal. Some of them are very crooked, and then when submitted as evidence to the crime lab, you have to discharge these firearms from a remote firing station where you're actually behind a piece of material or a shield that will protect you from secondary parts coming apart due to pressure within this homemade device when discharged. Some of them you can discharge a number of rounds through them from different calibers, and they will last for a long time. There have been a number of cases within our country where they make use of pipe rifles, which discharge either bigger round calibers or 12 gauge, and all you do is you just swing the pipe around and reload it from the back and shoot from the hip. And they're very accurate at short distances. So this is the type of evidence we also have to deal with. And according to the Act 2000, Act number 60 of 2000, it's called as if the device is capable of firing ammunition, it can be classified as a firearm. Next slide, please. This is also a big problem within our country and other countries in the world, but specifically here, it's to obtain the obliterated alphanumerical figures on metal. In this matter, we deal with obliterated serial numbers on firearms. I was recently notified that within the police, South African Police Service, they actually have the serial number on the barrel, the slide, and the frame, if I'm correct, Lucas?
Yes.
Yeah, thanks, Frans. And criminals obliterate these numbers from firearms and then being used in criminal activities. But we have the ways and means, either chemical or electromagnetic process, where we recover or restore the serial numbers on a firearm. It's quite a lengthy description of how we go about doing this, but this is one of the services that we also render when being submitted with a firearm that's got an obliterated serial number, and we have our ways of obtaining either the full or partly serial or obliterated numbers from the slide, the barrel, or the frame. Next slide. Next slide, please. Okay, it takes a...
Is it coming through? So I see
Yeah,
my
it's coming through, yeah.
internet is a bit unstable.
Yeah, it's coming up. And we also have to deal with the less than lethal devices. In this matter, can't see the whole slide, but this is a type of a starter pistol, or a device being used to project projectiles with gas. In this case, it was a pepper gun. She was actually shot with one of these, I think at close range, which actually destroyed both her eyes. It ripped both her eyes to pieces. This can also be classified as not as lethal as a firearm, but it can create a huge amount of bodily harm when not being utilized according to the owner's manual. And we also have to deal with devices like this and give our professional feedback when examining these type of firearms in report form. Next slide, please. We deal with bullet trajectory reconstruction. It's where a firearm has been discharged from a remote place, either from an open piece of land or a residential area, and the projectile is being projected into the air and maybe either hits a person or cause bodily injury to a specific person at a distance. We have the ways and means of tracking that trajectory back through to its original source. This is the type of cases we have to deal with as well. There's a number of cases within our country that we can refer to, where experts had to deal with the trajectory determination or the reconstruction of the trajectory being fired from a remote distance. Next slide, please. Letty, can you hear me?
Yeah, it's a bit slow. The internet is coming.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, that's why.
There's
Yeah,
a
it's
perfect
still-
example of being a firearm being fired from a residential area into a certain direction. That trajectory can be determined making use of external ballistic trajectory determination software. I don't know if there's any additional information coming up on this slide. It's very difficult actually to project the exact position of the person who discharged the firearm, but we can relocate an area from where we think, or the trajectory leads us to where the actual person discharged a firearm in a certain area. Next slide, please.
I think it's done, Wessie. Thank you so much. And thank you for that presentation. The next person will be Peter Fryer from Risk Diversion. Thank you, Peter.
Thank you. Thank you, Wes. It was most enlightening. I think a lot of us have benefited from that. I know that I certainly have. Let me share my screen here with you. Let me have that. Okay, everybody have my presentation available?
Thank you.
So it's my
Yes.
profound pleasure to be
Yes.
working with Wes and his team. Our partnership and friendship extends many years. It was quite refreshing to see Letty's face. Letty and I also worked together, I think, 20 odd years ago, when she
Yes.
provided us with marketing and sales support within the risk diversion entity. Maybe just a short background. Myself, I've been involved in computer investigation for more than 2.5 decades. It's obviously a passion, otherwise I'd be selling Boerewors rolls somewhere by now. And it's over the last 2 decades, I've seen how the technology's morphed. What that means is that in the initial stages of it, the digital forensic space was limited primarily to recovering deleted or previously existing data from computers. With the advent then of mobile devices, we saw a huge shift. It was a tectonic shift to evidence being harvested from mobile devices. And if we consider that everybody has at least one mobile device, a cell phone, the evidence collected from cell phones is phenomenal. It's also considered, in terms of forensic evidence, one of the only forensic evidences available where you're able to prove the intent. If you consider the content of a message where I'm stating, I'm going to come and kill you, it's explicit. So all the other evidences that we work with, the mobile device is probably one of the most important devices that we currently extract evidence from, and it presents its own unique challenges by virtue of security and encryption. At risk diversion, and I'm going to talk primarily about risk diversion, Wes has alluded to another company in our group, which is Forensic Tools. And Forensic Tools is primarily focused on touch and trace evidence and consumables that can be used on the crime scene. Wes pointed out rightly that we do develop our own technologies, powders, dispersal applicators. For that, we hold our own patents. So there's a lot of innovation coming from South Africa. I do have the benefit of traveling around the world, and as such, I can tell you that we do things differently. For now, my presentation is going to be focused on digital forensics and the supporting technologies that's available for lawyers and prosecutors, as well as investigating officers. And in-house, I did mention earlier that we have in excess of 100 years of experience. I'm fortunate to work with individuals that were key to the formation of the South African Police's computer crime unit, which was established in the late 80s. So we have a depth of knowledge which is unparalleled in the market. This gives us the competitive edge in being able to look backwards at what we've been doing, and then also being able to look at what's happening in the global scheme of things. One of my key responsibilities would be to have a look at what law enforcement agencies are doing globally. And certainly one of the things that we're seeing is that there's this drive by manufacturers, developers of the forensic technologies that we use and sell is to empower non-technical investigators. So no longer is it reserved for a select few individuals, but we're certainly seeing that digital forensic technologies is moving towards allowing investigators to use technology on the front line. And there we introduce the concept of triage or field forensics. So at Risk Diversion, we have several offerings, and I'm not going to belabor the point, but digital forensics is at the core of it. And then we're also offering a response to things like ransomware, malware infection, network intrusion, data loss. So it's all about forensics for us. And at the heart of it, we consider ourselves a support function to the investigators, to the prosecutors and the legal fraternity. Within the realm of digital forensics, some of the areas that we're specializing in are mobile device forensics, so cell phones, iPads, memory sticks, drones, smartwatches, smart devices, the typical kind of artifacts that you can expect to be found on a crime scene. And a lot of what we deal with, we're fast to consider only the accused or the suspect in the matter. but there are at least two other categories of individuals that would be playing a role on the crime scene, and that would be the victim themselves and also the witness. And with evidence collection, we're confronted with a concept commonly referred to as the golden hour. And within that golden hour, you have the most cooperation, the easiest access to evidence on the crime scene. And I'll later on in my presentation touch on one of the most critical pieces of evidence that's often overlooked until a much later stage, and that's CCTV. Mobile device evidence is collected and harvested. And unfortunately, the current scenario that we find ourselves with is that the South African police are under-resourced, under-capacitated. So if we consider that you have roughly 140, 150,000 serving members, you have about 20,000 detectives in and amongst those serving members, you have about 3,500 forensic field workers, but you only have around 50 to 80 digital forensics or cyber forensic investigators in the South African police. And yet, if you consider the volume of digital artifacts that are harvested, they're not getting out to them, not in the slightest. So from our side, we provide support not only to law enforcement, but also to the legal fraternity. And that service encompasses extracting information from mobile devices, enhancing evidence collected from CCTV. So that means enhancing CCTV footage, digital images collected from mobile devices or CCTV systems or dash cams. And then also more recently, what we're finding a lot of the time that we're spending on is the authentication of images. With the advent of the ability to generate images utilizing artificial intelligence, more and more we're confronted with requests from our clients to determine whether an image is a camera original and whether any artificial intelligence agents have been utilized to create an image. We're finding that this is quite a popular defense, both from the accused and from the state, that evidence that has been submitted has been tampered with or manipulated. And one of the services that we currently offer is the authentication of video, audio, and images from suspect devices, whether seized by law enforcement or provided by the willing client. In that end, we're also providing voice biometric services. So that's the comparison of voices collected from telephone calls, WhatsApp voice notes, or even just recordings that were made by someone's cell phone. We do have the capability in-house to compare voices and with scientific accuracy determine whether two voices are linked to each other, and in so doing, provide that support to, again, the legal fraternity and to law enforcement. The concept of triage refers to being able to, in a swift manner, determine what information is available on hand, and then remediate and assist clients in being able to secure their networks. And within our cyber triage service, we have a look at things like ransomware investigations. So it's a very common occurrence where companies are infected as a result of either a negligent staff member or a malicious outsider that has inadvertently targeted a company by means of a phishing attack or spear phishing attack. Corporate networks are then encrypted and held ransom, typically for a crypto amount. Bitcoin or one of the other cryptocurrencies are available. So our reaction services or our response services allow us to investigate the initial infection, the source of it. Has it spread across the network? Has there been escalation of specific privileges? And where possible, we assist clients in decrypting that information that has already been encrypted, or we provide a ransomware negotiation service where we will undertake the negotiation with the criminal entity to determine whether all of the data is available. And then we provide that negotiation service by means of facilitating the payment for the release of the client's data. That extends into that data breach. Has information been stolen from the corporate network? How did it occur? Through which means did it occur? Was it from a malicious outsider, a negligent insider? So there are a few services in this triage offering that we present to our client base. And in most cases, we deal with what we refer to as volatile evidence. Volatile evidence would be the network traffic which is ongoing, but also the memory of the computer on which the infection has taken place. And it's absolutely critical that these acquisitions need to be undertaken in the shortest period of time, but also from the live network. We're finding more and more that your clients are receiving some advice, whether it be from a former law enforcement individual or even the internet, where they're saying shut down your system, unplug the network, sever the connection. And what we're then finding is that it's almost too late for us to be able to work within that data set, because any encryption that might have been undertaken or in place is lost. The recovery keys are lost, and it frustrates the investigative process primarily. A large portion of this triage service is also the recovery of data. Part of the ransomware process or the malware process, it means the data is destroyed. We do have the ability to recover this information, and it includes the recovery of deleted information from CCTV systems. We're finding that law enforcement and the legal fraternity are often under the misconception where it's saying, well, we've set up our CCTV system only to record for a period of 7 days. And if we miss that 7-day window, the footage is lost. And in fact, it's not. The way that the DVR system manages that footage, it means that it might not be available for the user to access footage beyond the 7-day window, but the footage is available on the original hard drive. And again, with the technology that we utilize, we have the ability to recover CCTV footage that extends several months back. It's not a given, but again, it would be something that we would need to assess to determine the viability of recovering deleted information from any system, whether it be a cell phone, whether it be a computer or CCTV. A few examples of the kinds of cases, the typical cases that we're dealing with, and these are in line with the newly enacted cyber crimes law. It has brought along a few challenges, but with those challenges, the opportunities have arisen. It means that there are now crimes that are investigators that are now in fact crimes and aren't handled under some other ancillary act. And these include things like cyberbullying, extortion, and cyber terrorism, online harassment, online defacements of websites and social media pages, cyber stalking, and then also the analysis that goes with this. Because of the quasi-anonymous nature of the internet and the ability to utilize synthetic identities, we're finding that people are using revenge methodologies with ease, setting up email addresses which are largely untraceable, and then posting derogatory, defamatory elements onto social media pages. And the investigation of it is a acceptable methodology that we apply. And it largely relies on the cooperation of the victims in this matter, but also with law enforcement and with the judiciary, because most of the information that we require is only obtainable by means of legal assistance, whether it's mutual legal assistance from cross-border entities like Google or Facebook or Meta, or online resources. But we do need to work hand in glove with law enforcement agencies as well as the judiciary in order to secure this evidence, which exists in the virtual space or in the cloud, if you will. And something that's important to note is that we refer to the cloud in an almost offhand manner. My data's in the cloud. I use Office 365. I use cloud-based storage. But the cloud is actually just another computer that exists in another physical location. One of the challenges when working with evidence in the cloud is jurisdiction, and also something that we refer to as data sovereignty. Where is your data housed? In which country? And what are the laws of that country that we need to then apply to in order to access information from the cloud? Paired with our services is training. And over the last 2 decades, I'm happy to say that we've been responsible for training in excess of 500 law enforcement officers, not only in South Africa, but in many countries in Africa, as well as in the Middle East. We've worked into Eastern Europe, we've worked into North and South America, and a lot of the training that we present has been digitized. With the corona outbreak, with lockdown, it presented us with a lot of opportunities. And those opportunities meant that we could take our training that traditionally would be delivered in a brick and mortar situation by an instructor, and we've digitized this. So our first responder training, where we're training non-technical investigators, non-technical individuals in how to identify, collect, and preserve digital evidence, is now available online in an on-demand training workshop. We recently provided training to one of our clients. Those individuals, 14 of them, logged in every day. We get engagement reports. We could tell how long they spent on a particular slide. We could tell you what the percentage pass rate is. And that provides feedback to management on a day-to-day basis. It also gives us an idea of the students that attend our training, who would be the suitable candidates for that next level of training that could move on to the next level of training, which might be computer forensics, mobile device forensics, network forensics, CCTV enhancements. So it allows you to accommodate thousands of students in virtual classrooms without having to host a physical on-prem training. And in so doing, it reduces greatly the cost of training and the time spent that you don't have to deploy your staff members from provinces or from other geographical locations to a central location. And it means that we can customize our training very, very quickly for specific needs. We've taken 40-hour training modules and broken them into 8-hour sessions because of the experience of the end users to which we're aiming these training modules. Just a high-level summary of the kind of training that we're offering is first responder, and this includes your digital first responder, but we've also developed crime scene management modules, again, aimed at the non-technical, non-experienced user, and this would be allowing them to upskill themselves and to use the knowledge that we impart to them using these digital platforms to be able to successfully identify, collect, and preserve evidence on the crime scene. Digital evidence by its very nature is volatile and latent, meaning that you have to develop it using software tools as well as methodologies. And it's no different for any of the other typical touch and trace evidence that you might find on the crime scene, whether it be fingerprints or DNA or blood patterns. You utilize technologies and chemicals and methodologies to be able to uncover this hidden or latent evidence. From a computer forensic and mobile forensic point of view, you need to use technologies. And we're happy to report that for the last 2 decades, we've been partnered with industry-leading technologies. And through the development, we've seen being able to recover information first just from a SIM card. We're now at the point where we're able to recover information from not only the cloud, so that would be things like Facebook, Dropbox, OneDrive, the Google space, but also from the mobile device itself. So the technologies that we utilize, sell, and support allow us to unlock locked devices, which is obviously a key benefit in an investigation, because ultimately the user of the mobile device may be uncooperative in the matter, but in a lot of cases, the person whose mobile device that we're trying to access is deceased. So we're not able to get access to the biometric features or the passcode or the username. And a lot of the technologies that we utilize allow us to circumvent that security in a forensically acceptable and a forensically sound manner. All of the technologies that we utilize in support of the services that we offer and the training that we deliver are forensically accepted. So it covers the 3 fundamentals that are usually required by the court. One, the accuracy of the evidence retrieved, the reliability of the technology, and also the reproducibility of the evidence. So we can, with absolute assurance, say that every time we process evidence in its original format, utilizing the technologies and the methodologies, our results are accurate, meaning that there's a scientific foundation for what we report on. The results are reliable, meaning that I, as the expert, are absolutely confident in testifying in my findings, and that they are reproducible, meaning that should another expert with similar experience to myself, utilizing similar or the same technology, take the evidence, the results will always be the same. And therefore, the reliability of our evidence is court tested and accepted by the courts. Our role as digital forensic experts is not to confuse the court by utilizing technical terms and long-winded jargon. It's to support the court to understand the evidence that's placed before them. And we are fortunate that if we are relaying evidence from, let's say, a mobile device, almost everybody sitting in the courtroom on any given day has a cell phone, uses a cell phone, and would understand the terminology that when I'm saying we have recovered artifacts from WhatsApp, which is a communication platform, we're confident in understanding that the presiding officer, the prosecutor, or the legal fraternity would be able to lead and understand that evidence. And it's our role as experts to provide a layperson's version of the technology of those digital results that we've recovered. In terms of the specialist products that I've mentioned, there are just simply too many. You know, I think in our current stable, we have in excess of 90 technology partners, and inside of those technology suites would be hundreds of them. You know, the previous slides, which will be made available for download, allude to the digital forensic, let's say, subsets that we work within. So digital forensic investigation would be the overarching concepts, but the subsets would be computer forensics, CCTV forensics, mobile device forensics, voice, and you know, underneath each one of those would be various subsets. There's a subset of digital forensic investigation which exists as anti-forensics. So not only are we looking for evidence that may have been destroyed, but we're also looking for the presence of anti-forensic techniques, which means, you know, software that was specifically designed to destroy evidence on the digital landscape. So, you know, we're not only looking for a deleted document, we're also looking for the presence of tools which may manipulate metadata, times and dates of files, but also looking to destroy any evidence on a hard drive or a mobile device. So it's an all-encompassing arena, and as such, you know, we've been working in this space for more than 2 decades, and our international partners provide us with great guidelines of where industry is going. I routinely sit on forums where we have a look at what international trends are, and those are then relayed to our clients locally through, you know, very powerful forums like we're on now. And again, you know, I'd like to extend my thanks to Wesley's team for the opportunity. In terms of what we do, you know, a lot of our contemporaries in the industry find themselves often, you know, trying to be the leading light, trying to be the most important show in town. But, you know, I find that what it is that we're trying to achieve is to support the legal fraternity by decoding and interpreting the digital evidence. My services that we offer are absolutely 100% a support service, nothing more than that. You know, I'm not the primary show in town. I take my guidance from our clients, which would be either a legal team or from an investigator. And as such, you know, our primary mandate is to provide expert witness support to legal teams, interpreting these reports and evidence, and then also research the latest techniques to ensure that when we do have the opportunity to present our evidence in court by means of expert witness testimony, that we're confident that what we're presenting has been decoded or interpreted utilizing the absolute latest technologies. It is, while I'm sitting here now, there were probably 5 new mobile devices launched onto the market. Whilst I can't say what the latest features are, you know, with the research that we conduct, we do test new devices, we do test new technology, and I can say with 100% assurance that if I haven't used the technology myself, if I haven't tested it, if I'm not confident with what it's advertised to do, I will never use that technology in an active investigation, because ultimately it would be my reputation that gets placed on the line in presenting this evidence to the court. So we don't utilize free-to-use download tools off the internet. We don't use you know, unverified technologies. So we only work with valid technology partners in the world where we're able to log the accuracy, reliability, and the reproducibility of the technologies. And the workshops that we present ourselves and also with our partners in the industry is aimed at developing this technical understanding so that the non-technical investigator, the legal expert, walks away with an understanding of what can be done with mobile device, what can be done with digital evidence, what are the current threats to the industry, and what can be proven, what is legally defensible in court. I'm going to take a small segue now and focus primarily on CCTV evidence. And the reason for that is, in our experience working with law enforcement, working with our legal clients, is there are two pieces of evidence that we often are exposed to that are the most incorrectly collected evidence. The first being mobile devices. And that would be a one-day workshop on its own, but I'm going to talk about CCTV evidence, because there's so much CCTV evidence that we're exposed to, that we're presented with, not only from a recovery point of view, but also from an enhancement and authentication point of view. And if we consider CCTV as evidence on its own, it provides a third-party objective eyewitness view of what happened on the crime scene. You have your eyewitnesses, whether it be a traffic cam, whether it be a dash cam, whether it be a body camera, whether it be mobile device evidence or a static CCTV system that might have been installed at a home, you have this objective view of what's taken place. Whilst it provides you with this third eye or bird's eye view of what's happened, it's objective. There's no hearsay, there's no I said, you said kind of scenario that's being presented. So it allows you to look at it from a point of view, and the kind of evidence that we're seeing would be from robberies, rapes, murders, ATM bombing, CITs, motor vehicle accidents, and the depth of evidence that we're getting is often compromised by virtue of how it was collected. And if we have a look at the problem statement, and I'm going to read this, I think we're all learned here, but the problem statement is that due to the vast number of types of legacy, current, and emerging devices, it's not always possible to establish a precise set of procedures to cover each and every situation. The crime scene experts are faced with multiple methodologies to securely extract evidence from CCTV, DVR, and video recording devices. That's the problem, is that there are so many systems out there. You've got the big name brands, but you've also got the cheap China store variants, which the messages are in Chinese, and it's impossible for the crime scene expert, the field worker, the digital expert, to have the depth of knowledge to know how to collect evidence from each one of these things. If we consider images and footage used as evidence, after an allegation is made and the CC is identified, who analyzes it? Who collects that evidence? Is it the same guy that's collecting the fingerprints on the crime scene? Is it a detective that might have many years of experience in the South African police or certified fraud examiner? Who's the person that ultimately has the knowledge and the skills to acquire, process, and interpret the information that's collected from the system? And again, is it the overworked detective who has to utilize whatever they have at their disposal, meaning they've downloaded a free-to-use tool to play a video that has been provided to them on a memory stick, which isn't forensically sound or secure, by the petrol station owner? So those are the sort of seeds that we're planting and provides for the food for thought. Is the data export presented to you by them, meaning the complainant in the matter, the victim in the matter, or is it yourself, meaning a duly appointed and sufficiently trained expert that attends to the crime scene with the necessary knowledge and equipment to be able to be on the scene? You're often presented with these kinds of things, installations in the roofs of houses, open CCTV systems inside of a store. This is a screenshot from a news feed that was taken many years ago of a terror attack that had taken place outside of the shop. And if we have a look at the exposed DVR standing inside of this guy's store, this evidence was in fact overlooked, meaning that the news crew was already interviewing this guy 2 days after the terrorist attack, and his CCTV system hasn't been uplifted. It hasn't been removed from the scene. It hasn't been preserved in any way. And that there in itself is the kind of thing that we find on a regular basis. When presented with CCTV evidence, we often say that we want to try and determine what are the parameters and the priorities of the CCTV evidence. What are the parameters? Is it a specific camera at a specific time? Is the priority to identify a suspect or a vehicle? Do we need to export the footage for the investigative team to review, to look for additional suspects, when a bomb was planted, where evidence was collected, what was the condition of a road surface during the accident, for example? Is it incident only, meaning that I only need to collect 10 minutes of footage? Or are we looking all external cameras for the daylight hours? And that also depends on what system was installed. Does it record for 24 hours? And for what period of time are we looking at? Or are we just looking at all footage, which means that it's going to take time to export hours and hours and hours from potentially 32 channels in a business or at a specific crime scene. We have what we call the quick and dirty collection, and this is most often what we're finding from detectives. Snap and record the monitor with a cell phone. If you have a look at the news applications, if you have a look at social media, there's way too many video clips available where you can see it's somebody standing at the screen using their CCTV, their mobile device or their cell phone to capture the screen of the CCTV installation at a petrol station. The manner in which that footage was collected is incorrect. What you're doing is you're in essence providing evidence which has been tampered with, because the frame rate, the aspect ratio, the quality, the resolution, even the format in which you're capturing is not even closely associated with the original, and therein we can't rely on that as anything other than potential hearsay evidence. It's not even a first version of what the original evidence would be. What evidence, what collection methodology is deployed? Does the detective or the crime scene analyst have the kind of storage available? Memory sticks, DVDs, CDs. These old DVRs still utilize DVDs. Do you have an external hard drive that's forensically prepared? So these are all the questions that are posed for what we refer to as collection considerations. This is a perfect example of a screenshot that's been taken with a cell phone of a screen. We have what we call the Moyer effect. It looks like a gauze that's been placed over it. You don't know the shirt that this individual is wearing. Does it in fact have a stripe pattern on it, yes or no? The color space is also affected by the Moyer effect. The floor that we're seeing now, what are we looking at? So there would be a lot of things that we would need to consider from CCTV footage. This is just an example of a infrared image. So that's the original, and that's what the infrared camera sees. So again, the camera applies a lot of it. Wes, I see you've sent me an image of my. Is that where we're at?
Yeah, sorry, Peter. I think we have the platform till 12, eh? But
Okay. No, my apologies. I'm going to skip ahead. This presentation will be downloadable. I want to just get to one short demonstration. It's going to take me no more than 5 minutes, and then I'm going to hand over.
No, you're good. You're good.
So we have three images. We have blurred images, and we've got a fantastic image. And I just want to show the capabilities of the platform. Again, it's CCTV. These are images that have been collected from a mobile device, from a petrol station's forecourt, and from covert surveillance that was undertaken by a surveillance team of a vehicle. So I'm going to break away now to another screen. And I just want to make sure, does everybody have my screen available? Just going to end my presentation.
We can see you very clearly, Peter. It looks like you're in front of the pearly gates.
Pearly gates, you say? Let's get back to the... I'm just going to share my screen so that you can
Peter,
see.
can I ask you a favor? If it's possible, if you can maybe just this presentation, if you can, within this recording, just to let us know where we can download this image, okay, or the slideshow.
Okay, can everybody see the screen with a blurred red car?
Yes.
Okay, so there's no dispute. It's a car, it's red, but ultimately what we want to do is we want to create some level of individualization, meaning I want to see the number plate. So this is a relatively simple example where the sensor was moving, meaning that the person that took the picture, pulled out their cell phone, quickly snapped a shot, but the subject and the sensor are moving. So we have what we call blurring. So the application that I'm using is called AMP5. It's the same technology that the South African police are using now and law enforcement agencies globally. We sell and we support this technology, but we also use it in our own investigations in our lab. So there would be an array of filters. The original remains intact. I apply a filter to it. So I can absolutely testify as to what I've done to the original image. And at all points, I can go back to the original image to show that there's no tampering. This is a motion deblurring scenario. And in this example, I need to just show the extent that the blur took place. So that was pretty quick. Now we can see the number plate, Alpha Hotel 460 Mike Echo. That was very quick, dirty, nasty. I can apply a couple of other things. Make the image a little clearer. And then from a presentation point of view, I can compare it to the original. That then is a bookmark I apply, and those kinds of images will then be available in my report. But from where we had that, we now have that. Pretty straightforward, clear, and explicit. Here we have this is an actual robbery that took place at a fuel station. This gray Jetta arrived, guys jumped out. They robbed the petrol station, blew up the ATM. And this was the only snapshot of the vehicle that was clear enough for us to even attempt the recovery of a number plate. We can say with some assurance that it's a Northwest number plate. I'm sure you'll all agree. Critically viewing the image, there are a few things with a picture. So the one thing, the aspect ratio needs to be adjusted, and that's just simply because the way that it was exported from the CCTV system, it was incorrectly exported. So we need to change the aspect ratio. So now you can see it appears as if there's more image, but in fact, the image was always there. It's just that it was incorrectly collected. So now we are going to attempt to retrieve the number plate from this. Again, it's the same scenario, motion deblurring. We're going to use the motion deblurring filter. So if you have a look there, you can now see FGH 617 Northwest. Do you concur? You can all just nod. So something like this has taken me 12 seconds. If this was an active investigation, I'd spend a bit more time and there would be a report. And then finally, for my last example, is not all images that we receive are of a bad quality. They're just badly taken. So this is a snapshot of a vehicle. It was covert surveillance. They were walking past the vehicle. This was the number plate that were attempting to retrieve. You don't have the ability with covert surveillance to circle back 3 or 4 times. And in essence, that vehicle was part of an active surveillance operation. So what we want is this number plate. Within AMP5, there are hundreds of filters that affect different things. And in this particular thing, we want to correct the perspective of this number plate. This filter works well on linear surfaces. So the printing on the side of a truck, on the back of an overall, so it works really well. And in this instance, the information was captured by the sensor, but we had to provide or apply what we refer to as a geometric transform to change the position of the pixels. And the supporting evidence that goes with this is the scientific research with actual references 2 image processing fundamentals that supports this particular filter. Now, I've received training in this particular application, worked on hundreds of cases, testified many, many times, and this is just the enhancement part of it. When we come to the actual analysis and the authentication, it opens up another realm. So with that, I'd like to thank you. Thank you for the time. Thank you for the indulgence to allow me to carry on and waffle a little bit. I will now upload my presentation to the chat portion of the Zoom, and you're all able to download it. And I'm sure afterwards there'll be an after-action review. But thank you very much for everybody's time, and I'll remain on the call for questions afterwards.
Thank you so much, Peter. Very informative. Very, very informative. Thank you. Rian?
Hi, thank you, Letty. Thank you, Wes. So Rian van Schalkwyk from Red Cipher. If I just may ask, can I do screen sharing, please?
Yes, you should be able to.
Okay, thank you. So you all can see my screen. We, as Red Cipher, we're the select partner for social links in South Africa, Southern Africa. Just in terms of the platform, it's an automated platform that collects social media data. You can either do it manually, it takes time, but the latest social media automated platforms can collect this instantly or very quickly. Just some of the features I want to highlight on this slide. It has got a darknet leaked model. So what we're seeing, what's happening within the crime network environment that's on social media, they use synthetic IDs or pseudonyms. So this platform through the darknet, what the bad guys are forgetting is that when they do use emails and cell phone numbers to register on platforms, they sometimes cross over to their pseudo profiles, but those identities are leaked into the dark web through some of these platforms, X, Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook. These platforms have been hacked over time quite successfully, and that data gets dumped into the dark web. So what the platform does is to look out for those type of variables. You can then analyze those and identify where profiles are linked to each other. So that's one of the benefits of using the platform. We can do reverse image search on vehicles and firearms, sentiment analysis, where, especially on X, where comments are left, you can take, if there's large volumes of comments, you can do sentiment analysis, you can do theme analysis to understand what are the topics of what are being used. So for instance, if there's a group who's promoting violence, you can easily then determine, you can then further go back to hashtags, who's the originator of that theme and those threads. So you can then analyze those. On the social media platforms, it obviously can analyze, bring to you the friends, followers, check-ins, likes, posts, and comments. So it is capable of doing that. Object detection, I've mentioned. Facial recognition, the platform uses facial recognition. So for instance, if you have a Facebook page with a name and a face or a photo, it can then automatically go and do a reverse search across platforms and identify for you where else are certain platforms, profiles registered on these platforms. Company search, data leaks, papers in the past, especially from tax havens where those papers have been leaked. That data is also available. And then finally, blockchain. In terms of cryptocurrency, you can follow the hashes as well as transaction IDs, as well as the wallet addresses. on this platform. So that module is available as well. These are basically the use cases that you can use this platform on. We successfully now use it in terms of enhanced due diligence, the compliance side of work. As I've mentioned, synthetic and pseudonames, that's becoming important. We see that the CIT groups, the networks, they use pseudos and synthetic IDs when they do operate on social media platforms. We've been successful in identifying those pattern of life, profiles of theirs where they start sharing the spoils of their loot. So yeah, in terms of cybercrime investigations, very effective in terms of identifying risk exposure to devices. We can then track through the dark web where were those devices and the account details being leaked. We can see the password exposure in terms of how recent are those passwords in terms of platform where they were registered on platforms. Were those passwords, are they still recent? Were they changed in between or not? And then, as I've mentioned, fake profiles and social media profiles. You can use it for pattern of life investigations and lifestyle audits as well. Bess, if I may just ask, I can do a demo, but I do prefer not to record it on this session. Is that possible?
Rian, I think it is possible if we can just liaise with Susan, who is our Zoom host, that we might not record what you want to do with us or present to us, which is, we can do. Let's just check with her. Is that viable, Susan?
Yes, I can just press the pause button, then it won't record.
Okay, yeah, please do.
Okay.
Skalkwyk. If there's any questions, can you just raise your hand? Whereafter Vessie can just monitor and ask for the person to answer. Thank you, Vessie.
Yeah, thanks first of all for everybody's attendance. And what's quite interesting of all the platforms we can assist, as Peter says, our legal fraternity. And I'm pretty sure that we've all gained quite a bit of knowledge from the presentations that was presented to us. And I want to extend a word of thanks to all the people who's present, who's signed in to listen to us and be part of this growing interest within our country. So thank you to all our experts. And I want to just hand it over to our legal experts who would like to partake in this Q&A and ask us questions of what we can assist you with in regards to our different companies and the experience that we've gained, not just locally, but internationally as well, and where we are at this moment within South Africa when it comes to crime. So I don't know who wants to raise their hand first, but let's proceed. Thank you. Any questions? Hello? Letty?
Vessie,
Any questions?
it looks like there's nobody that want to ask questions. Nelly, Teresa, Futi, Christu, I'm not sure if anybody would like to answer anything. If not, we can just close the meeting then, Vessie.
Hi, Teresa. Welcome. Any questions? I don't know if you followed.
Thanks, Vess. Yes, yeah, it was so informative and it's so broad. I would just like to know, I presume that all this information would come in if you would decide to follow private prosecution, unless you want to build up a defense for whoever you are representing in any matter.
You're referring to the AI presentation?
Yes.
Yeah, Rian, you want to take that question?
Yeah, certainly. I think it gives you an opportunity to see what's available. But as Peter mentioned, that if you do want to go to court, you need to take further steps. You have to work with the platform service providers. If it's a criminal prosecution, you have to work with law enforcement, subpoena some of the specific data. Our courts will accept that type of evidence. So if you potentially want to follow through in a criminal matter, you have to follow additional steps. What the platform does is gives you quick insights, but from a litigation point of view or civil litigation, there are different questions to be answered here as well.
Thank you, Rian.
Anybody else?
I see that Chris, who recently joined us, it's an old friend and an attorney of mine. I just want to thank him for his support. Marius, any questions? Saul, Puti, PF. I don't know if there's anybody else listening to or muted or just disappeared, but any questions, please? Okay, Letty, I think I don't think there's going to be questions, but I just wanted to say, if there's any questions that might arise later on during this presentation, please feel free to get a hold of Letty, Peter, or myself, and Rian, and we can collaborate on a number of questions that you would like to place to us, please.
Wes, if I can
Yes,
just
Teresa.
maybe ask another question. Do you guys offer any individual or training or certification in forensic investigations?
If you refer to forensic investigations, is it forensic investigations regarding IT or forensic investigation all around? Yes. Yeah, I think we offer a number of certificates within forensic science when it comes to investigation and utilizing crime scene tactics on crime scenes. I think Peter does, and Rian. I don't know if Rian is involved with training, but he's got a platform where he sells a specific product and then he trains the client in that product or how to operate that product to obtain artificial intelligence, like he just explained. Peter can collaborate on the certification that he's got to offer. But as far as we are concerned, we've recently, as you're well aware of, is that the CETA or SAQA has transformed from one organization to the QCTO. I'll never get that name correct, but we have transformed all our lecture material to the new, the local authority, to have all our courses accredited and certified so that we can present training within those criteria. But up until then, we will just have informative sessions and, just brief public and give them information regarding the type of training that we will be able to present in the near future. But nothing prohibits us from, empowering the public and students to get additional external and training and tactical training. What do you call it? Not tactical, but the word has slipped my mind. But not just theory, but practical training. Sorry, practical training. Yes. Because most of the students that studies within a certain field, they lack practical experience to a vast extent, which we can assist them with later after they finish their studies.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
Any other questions, anybody?
Wes, it's Christo here. Can you hear me?
Chris.
I'd like to ask, I think it's Peter, that gave the presentation with regards to, let's call it the CCTV cameras. Now, I've heard he said that a lot of people that falls victim to crime, if I'm not mistaken, but I'm going to speak in broad terms, make let's call it a copy of the CCTV footage with their cell phones and so forth. Now, the reason why I'm asking is we've had that experience recently where it's very difficult, and we must all understand, being my background as well as in SAPS, and where we are currently with our SAPS investigation and how they do the investigations. It is very difficult, if not almost impossible, to get SAPS or an investigating officer when there is CCTV footage available at one or other source, to get them quick enough to obtain that video footage. I would Peter suggest one deals with that, let's call it inability, or how do one deals to secure that evidence yourself? Because obviously SAPS is not in a position to do that timelessly, and obviously I think they lack the will to do that. Maybe if he's got advice on how do you secure the best way possible CCTV footage for yourself to hand over to an investigating officer. Thanks.
Christo, thank you. It's a very good question, and it's something that we're faced with almost on a daily basis. So how we typically handle it is, in a few manners. One, where geographically possible, we can provide technical expertise to secure the evidence from the original. If that's not practically possible, we provide a virtual consultation service, which includes telephonic support, as well as we do video calls, so that whoever is on the scene, we can provide them with guidance, going through step by step how to select the appropriate methods to extract footage. Now, the absolute first prize would be to uplift the entire CCTV recording system, the DVR, because that would be the original evidence. And understanding that by virtue of the fact that the system's always on and it's recording, it's volatile. So, if you wait longer, the potential to overwrite footage or lose the ability to access it is highly probable. So, the two things that we do immediately, and this is for SATs, for private security companies, forensic firms, complainants in the matter, victims in the matter, we provide a virtual consultation service where we can telephonically provide you with the step by step how to do it, how to prepare a memory stick, if that's the interface that's available. We have a knowledge base of hundreds, if not thousands, of different CCTV systems of how to get access to it, and then we also provide advice on the best format in which you need to export. So one of the things that I didn't get an opportunity to touch on is compression. So if you export to like MP4, you're going to get a slightly degraded quality. If you export to AVI, you're going to get a better quality. It's the same with an image. If you save it to JPEG, you're going to get a transportable format, but compressed. If you use bitmap or RAW, you're going to get a better quality image. So, to answer your question, we have the ability to support you on site by means of a forensic technician, or where that's not possible, we provide a virtual consultation service by means of telephone, video calls, links to user manuals of all of these systems that you're confronted with, and we provide you with that advice. And then there would be four fundamental things that we'd want to instill into that person that's standing in front of it, is that there's an overarching principle that we've used for many years, and it's what most of the evidence handling standards, digital evidence standards, are based on. And it says that nothing you do should alter the integrity of the data. But if you are going to interact with the data and potentially alter the integrity, make sure that you sufficiently train. So if you do have someone that is available on the scene to work within the CCTV system, try and get an installer or someone that is at least familiar with the use of that system, because they might need to be called to testify on the chain of evidence. Then, if you are going to interact with the system, make notes. Let somebody record you while you're busy selecting the footage, selecting the export methodology. Make copious notes, because again, you're going to be called on as a chain of custody witness, and then ultimately work under some supervision. So, don't just hand it over to the complainant themselves that has no experience. There is a timing issue, but you can realistically get someone that has relative knowledge of that system, whether it be us virtually or remotely, or an installer or a security provider within a couple of hours on the scene. So, I hope that kind of answers your question, but there's no single answer for this. When confronted with this, the technical answer is usually it depends.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Peter.
Peter, if I can maybe just collaborate on that. I've been dealing with investigations in the past where CCTV footage has become a partial or very relevant piece of information, of evidence to a certain case or murder case in regards to facial recognition or registration details on a vehicle, which was obviously can only be recorded for a certain amount of time and then kept on a server for a certain amount of time. But if the police lacks the capability of obtaining this CCTV footage as evidence within that time period before it's either deleted or run over by additional video recordings, how do we get that information when the police are mandated to obtain certain aspects of a crime scene, firstly, and to attend to that according to their mandate before private investigators can obtain that type of evidence? I think that is a big concern from my side, and I think that's a concern from what Christo raised during this conversation, is if the police lack the capability of obtaining that either CCTV footage or cell phone recordings within a certain time period before it's either deleted or re-recorded over, how can we as private investigation or private entities obtain that evidence prior to the SAPS looking at that evidence firstly? I think that's a big discrepancy when it comes to presenting evidence in court, whether we attended to it first or the local authority, which in this matter is the South African Police Service. I'm aware of a number of murder cases that's been strained by CCTV footage that was not recovered within a certain time period by the South African Police Service, and that video footage has either been re-recorded over or just disappeared. And then there's another aspect which I'm actually dealing with, where CCTV footage was obtained by the police, but they keep it on an external source and they make the client pay 700 Rand to obtain a copy of that CCTV footage. And that was the deceased, the wife of the deceased. They make her pay to get a copy of that video footage. Shouldn't that just be dealt with in a manner stating that she's liable to see what happened on that CCTV footage or video recording or mobile video recording? Instead, she's got to pay for it. I mean, that's the problem we are faced with, and I'm sure that you are aware of that.
I think, if I'll deal with the two parts of it. The first thing is, what mandate do you have to access the evidence? In most of the matters, you're in contact with the investigating officer. So you're not there to disrupt or destroy or tamper with the evidence. And with CCTV footage, SAPs don't have an exclusive mandate on that evidence. Where they're not able to attend to the scene in a reasonable amount of time, the complainant themselves have to then be forced to secure the evidence. The benefit of utilizing professionals in the industry is that the methodologies that we apply are the same methodologies that we've taught and instructed SAPs themselves to do it in. So the manner in which we collect the footage is 100% acceptable for the court. And it would be in really rare circumstances where the police would accuse you of contaminating that crime scene. Again, it speaks to the manner in which you collect that evidence. So if you're going to do a screenshot with your own personal cell phone, it opens up a lot. So in digital evidence, you work with two versions of evidence. You have your master copy, which is sealed in the event that a dispute arises, or whether SAPS now want to access it or not, or whether the opposing counsel wants to access it. And then you have a working copy. And the working copy, there's certain digital verification methodologies that we apply, which includes one of them, a digital hash. It's a digital fingerprint that you apply to evidence, which is irrefutable. It's a globally accepted standard. So those would be some of the things that you apply to ensure that what you're working on is absolutely the best and original evidence. In most cases, we liaise with law enforcement, and that they're only too grateful for our support. We're finding now, more often than not, where there are restrictions within the ability of the South African police to respond to certain things, the complainants are paying us to travel to these locations, to collect the evidence in the correct manner, to secure it. We then provide the analysis, and then ultimately we testify on behalf of the state. If it's a matter that involves, whether it's a civil litigation and we're appearing for one or other party, it comes down to the custodian of that evidence. Whose evidence is it, and how do we access it? So if it is, perhaps some sort of litigation, the two parties are in a dispute, and you need to access that evidence from the custodian who's uncooperative, then you have legal mechanisms. An example of that would be an Anton Pillar, for example. Or you can rely on SAPS in terms of the Criminal Procedure Act, or even the Cyber Crimes Act, to secure that digital evidence. So there are mechanisms available to us as independent experts to access that kind of evidence, which includes, but it's not limited to, things like custodian consent. Whoever's data it is provides us consent to access that information, and then we secure it in such a way that SAPS themselves can apply to us for a copy of that. The second portion, where you're saying that SAPS are now telling the complainant that they need to pay for it, I can understand it, and it would be by virtue of the fact that SAPS themselves don't have the resources to create copies of evidence, meaning that if it is a forensic copy of a DVR, which would be several terabytes of data, SAPS don't have spare hard drives that they can hand out. It's not like a printed report or something that you can just copy onto a memory stick. So if it is the case, they would have said, well, we're going to have to charge you for the hard drive that we're giving you for the evidence contained therein, because they themselves have to acquire those hard drives. It might have been a scenario where the complainant said, well, I don't have a hard drive, I don't have any experts that can assist me in this matter, you need to give me a copy, my legal team wants a copy. And all the legal team said, well, give us a copy of the hard drive, and in this case, you might have to pay for it.
Okay, thanks. Appreciate it.
It's certainly not the norm, but there would be circumstances where the South African police aren't in credible connection. They don't have warehouses full of hard drives. So if it was that scenario, but it's certainly not the norm. I would follow that up and get some more detail, but it's definitely not the norm for complainants to pay for access to evidence.
No, well, that was one of her complaints. And another thing is, Peter, this when you obtain CCTV footage, due to the lack of the capability of SAPS, or just the ignorance of obtaining this type of evidence that might strengthen the South African Police Services case when it goes to court. And I've dealt with cases like this in the past. And you obtain that evidence. Can't it come back in court and bite you from behind, stating that you've now obtained CCTV footage prior to the viewing of SAPS, who was mandated to obtain all evidence before a private company or private investigator was involved, or obtain that evidence prior to the police? Can it come back in court and bite you? How does it work? How do you explain that?
So again, there's a test of reasonableness, if that's even the word. You have to apply the sort of methodology to say, has SAPS had a reasonable amount of time to attend to the crime scene? Have they in fact already released the crime scene back to the victim's family and either neglected to collect that kind of evidence, or is it simply that SAPS are alleging that they don't have expertise, it's going to take a week, a month, a year for them to get somebody onto the scene? In terms of coming back to bite you in court, again, to stress, the way that we collect that evidence is done in such a manner that there can be little to almost no dispute in terms of the evidence itself. So again, we're sufficiently trained. We have the tools and expertise and experience to work within that evidence set. The manner in which we collect it is accepted by the court. The format that it's collected in is accepted by the court. And again, it's not simply just dragging and dropping files from one location to the other. And the DVR itself also maintains specific logs. So there would be copious amounts of notes, time, dates, scene reports, photographs of the DVR. And where possible, we try and do a copy of the entire hard drive and not just one single file that gets exported. But again, it speaks to the parameters and the priorities of that matter. So each case would have its specific merits, and your evidence collection methodologies would be applied within those merits and within those parameters and priorities that's dictated by that scene. But to answer your question in a short answer, no, it doesn't bite you. It doesn't come back to bite you should you apply the correct methodologies. And usually SAPs are only too happy to have someone that has the skills and the technology to be able to extract that evidence.
Okay, thanks, Peter. Any other questions?
I think nobody else, Wes.
Letty, then I think it's viable, if we can maybe conclude the session. Like Peter's presentation, Rian's presentation, and presentation of our company profile will also be, a link to this presentation, and then people can have a look at it at their own time. And then this recording will be utilized, to promote our individual companies. And I think it's important that we, as within the private sector, that we join hands, and be of strength within in the private sector, where people can go to when they either don't get any kind of assistance from local authorities or SAPs or whatever the case might be, where we can assist them in certain aspects of criminal investigations, as explained during this presentation. So if there's no additional questions, I would just like to thank Susan, who's the host, who was helping us and assisting us with the slideshows, Rian to presenting his company and the service that he can render, and to Peter Fryer from Risk Diversion and Forensic Tools. And it was a privilege to have you all on board, and thank you for all the people who joined us. This is just the beginning. I think with the next one, we will have a huge participation in numbers from a number of attorneys nationally or internationally, locally, or just across the border. So this is our aim to, to give the public and private entities some kind of authority just to obtain information when it comes to private investigation companies and what we can do for them. And we are not there in competition with the local authority. We're there to assist them. And I think that is quite a big option for us as private entities in our country, especially when we look at the South African Police Service being backlogged in all aspects of forensic science when it comes to crime scene. And I think, I'm not a prophet, but I think there's going to be a day, and I think Peter is with me on that fact, that there's going to be a day coming soon where the police will come to a point where they can't handle the amount of backlog of casework within the 4 different crime labs in the provinces spread out in South Africa, where they going to have to require the services of private entities like our company, Wesco Forensic Services, from Peter, Risk Diversion and Forensic Tools, and Rian from AI, to assist them with criminal investigations, and maybe to being used as subcontractors to assist them in their backlog, which will just assist our law system and our attorneys and advocates within our own country. So from my side, I just wanted to say thank you to Letty and Susan for orchestrating this presentation, and all the participants and the attorneys who attended. I think we'll just move forward and build on this platform. So from my side, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, everybody. We appreciate your participation and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Be good. Stay well.
Have a good day. Bye-bye.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.